I'm gonna record this. I just tried a few more times and it's just sitting there. And I'll probably reboot here at some point.
Okay.
But yeah, I just, again, I want to thank you for returning so much. And I want to thank you for the book that you just sent me in the mail. It's The Gift of Grace. Tell me a little bit about this book. Yeah, it's short and sweet. It gets right to it.
Yeah, what's really funny is a lot of times we get thrown for loops in our life and we miss the blessing in the mess, right? So I think that the Grace book is a cool little story on how to deal with great customer service and how to just kind of really step back from every situation. And it really can apply to anything. That one is specifically related to customer service. But man, when people are involved in anything, it's messy. And if we don't have some good, solid things to go back on, like, listen, people are just doing the best they can in the moment, we can find ourselves all riled up over something that in the long run isn't going to make much of a difference. So,
Oh man, I am going to need to go back and hear that over a few times. There
ditto.
is, I don't think there's anyone that's more guilty of that than me.
You know what happens, you have an interaction with somebody and you're all done with it, and a lot of times we'll be driving like, man, I should have said this or I should have
Yeah.
said that, and then of course you get back and you go, did I make too much of that? Did I handle myself the best possible way? So
Sure.
Grace gives us an opportunity to step back and go, hey, they're just trying to be the best they can, and so am I, and tomorrow we'll do better.
Now, is this you're a writer, so I'm guessing this is not your first publication.
It's not my first publication. It's my first little all by myself book, though. I have a lot of chapters in like Ziegler First Class, Dare to Be a Difference Maker series. There's a new Illuminate series. I wrote a series on 360 degrees of grief. I had a chapter in that from
Wow.
losing a child. I love to write. I've always loved to write. And it's just really great. I am working on a book right now called The A Word, and the A word in my world is accountability. Imagine lots of your listeners will really love that word. And so I think that writing is therapeutic. It's very, very fun to write.
Wow. I got to thank you so much for getting up at an ungodly hour out in Battle Creek, Michigan. Is that where you are?
Actually, Washington State.
Or
So we
Washington?
are,
That's right.
yeah, in
Washington.
Battleground, Washington. Yeah.
Battleground. That's what I'm thinking. Okay.
It's a place named after a battle that never happened. Isn't that lovely?
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And it's what's your 3 hours, I think, behind us. That's crazy. 2 hours,
Yeah,
3 hours.
3 hours. Mm-hmm.
Ouch. You are so dedicated to your mission in life, which in the back of your book, a quote from Dr. Robert Rohm, is it?
Yeah, Dr. Rohm, he's pretty
Or
cool.
Rohm, that you're one of the most positive, inspiring people that he knows. Being around you is contagious, and your positive attitude and enthusiasm for life help everyone that you meet. And that's just some of what he wrote. What do you do? You're basically the owner of Total Merchant Concepts, which is a credit card company.
It is, isn't that funny? Some people go, I'm pretty sure you weren't in high school going, man, if I could be anything, I would just want to own a credit card processing company. So no one, no, I don't think I've ever met anyone who's done that. But here's what happens is we end up where we end up. And if you're smart, you bloom where you're planted. And so we have a ton of businesses across the country that we get to work with. And sure, we do a basic needed service, credit card processing, but we also help them grow their business. So we do a lot of speaking and coaching and business training with our staff. And so it's something that I love to do. And I love Dr. Rome's comment. It's such a blessing. And if you've never met him, you really should. He's amazing. He's a master trainer of DISC, which is a great series on how to understand how people are wired differently. And that work becoming a master trainer with that DISC certification really has helped me to deal better with employees, with everyone that I meet, because a lot of times we expect people to respond the way we would respond, but they're not wired the same way we're wired. So that work
Sure.
has been incredibly helpful. But I will say one more thing just on that topic. Um, I feel so thankful for all the people that have come into my life, and I'll spend the rest of my life figuring out how to pay those gifts forward. And so when he says those beautiful, glorious things about me, I'm obviously honored and humbled, and it makes me smile, of course. But it's always because somebody else has taken a moment to say, "Hey, Cheri, how can I help you?" And I just want to, I think we all do better to try to figure out how to pay those things forward.
Sure. Gosh, I feel the same way. I feel the same way. I've got so many friends here in Vermont that have helped me in so many different kinds of ways. I had a friend who was with me last night remotely till about midnight, just trying to you know help me with my business, and it's good to feel grateful toward others, isn't it?
It makes all the difference.
Yeah.
Changes this whole dialogue that we're having in our country right now, too, by the way. When we
Yes.
look
Big
at
time.
an attitude of gratitude, as Mr. Zig Ziglar used to say, it's the best attitude you can have. And when we're grateful for what everybody brings to the picture, we don't have time for all this mess that we're dealing with right now. We just don't.
Yeah, true. Great point. Time is ticking by. We've got to figure this out and move on. And the nation's got a couple of monster sized things to figure out. Two big things going on right now, and the combination of them, the timing is frankly horrible. As a business coach, as a workplace expert, which
Woohoo, a
is
workplace culture expert. You know, somebody asked me one time, how did you become a workplace culture expert? I said, you don't want to know the answer. It's you do everything wrong, and the only thing left is usually what's right. So, woohoo, I'm an expert.
yeah, yeah. Well, you've done so much. You've communicated your message on so many different mediums: television, radio, you've print, you've been everywhere. What is one of the biggest questions that you're being asked right now? Is it about when all of us at-home workers are going to be going back to the office? How are we going to be talking around the water cooler around about race and racism and police and police brutality? These are all buzzwords right now that really could disengage a work team. It could create some tension without intention. And folks who could speak before and maybe get along and have some camaraderie might be paddling into some waters that they haven't before. And again, it could create some tension at work when those of us get back to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think right now, what people and maybe leaders and people in leadership positions and companies really need to think about is, how am I directing the focus? Because the truth of the matter is, if you're not saying anything, if you're not talking about these issues, your people are.
Yeah.
And just like you said, they're around the water cooler. I mean, I had a conversation last week when somebody called and said, "Hey, Cheri, we want to get you on the TV and talk about this issue." And JD, I almost declined because I just thought, can I add something and not fuel a flame? Because right now, what I see is, I see a lot of people jumping on TV, and we're real passionate about a topic on one side or the other,
Sure.
thinking that there's two sides of how to treat people, when
Yeah.
there really is only one side. You treat people with respect, and it doesn't matter. what color they are or what background they come from or what religion they believe in. But,
Or what their opinion is.
exactly, we all have different opinions. And somehow in our great country, we've gotten to the place where we can't even peacefully disagree. And that's so heartbreaking. But I've got a passion for people. And I felt like, okay, I think I can say something that can help, because here's the bottom line. It's a perspective. So there are some people saying this group of people has been wronged in some way. There's another group of people saying, what are you talking about? I've never experienced that. And guess what? Hey, here's a news flash. They could both be right. Because I made a phone call this past week to a friend of mine, two of them actually. They both happen to be Black. I have never in my relationship with either of these people called and said, hey, I need to talk to my Black friend.
Yeah.
I've never done that. They're my friends. And this was the most uncomfortable call I made to both of them to say, guys, I'm about ready to be on air about this really, really volatile topic. And I want to get your opinion. And it was an uncomfortable phone call, JD.
Sure. I'm
Because
sure.
I literally was talking to my friends who have just been my friends for years, and they're not any, I don't go, these are these kind of friends and these are that kind of friends. They're just my
Exactly.
friends.
Right.
And so when I watched the video on TV of what happened to Mr. Floyd, here's what I saw. I saw a police officer abusing his authority on another man. I didn't see a white police officer beating up a Black man. And so how we have gotten to this place, then that has only to do with my perspective, because I have shoes that I walk in. They're not the same shoes as everybody else. So we have to get comfortable around a conversation that involves different perspectives.
And like you said, and a great point, if management is not anticipating this type of rhetoric around the workplace, they really ought to. They ought to brush up on some strategy here on how they may deal with it, and maybe not. I think what you're saying is maybe not deal with it once they have to, but rather put it right out there in front. Hey, we're all going to get together. Whether it's if it's a big team, that might be a little bit more challenging. But if it's a smaller team, hey, we're all going to get together. We're going to close the office an hour early, and we're all going to sit around, have a cup of coffee, and we're just going to put it out there. Uncomfortable, you bet, but
Yep.
necessary, you bet.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the inference that you're allowing your team to have the conversation. You can't legislate or mandate character.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I tell companies all the time is when you're hiring people, you can't wait for a crisis to talk about stuff like this. I mean, if
Or
you did,
conflict, or a conflict.
yeah, and if you are waiting, then that means that maybe there needs to be some work done on your mission and on your core values to make sure that we're hiring to the mission, we're coaching to the mission, we're talking about the core values all the time. The conversation, we get together once a week as a team. The conversation we had yesterday was, guys, we don't do sensitivity training because we don't feel like any particular group or person, or male, female, Black, white, purple, whatever, it makes no difference to us. We feel like every single person has the right to expect a fair work environment. And so that's our core values. And if somebody's being a jerk about something, we're going to address it immediately and definitely make sure that we don't have that problem. But what happens, especially, probably in corporate cultures, or maybe even a little bit, I mean, if I dare say it, in the police department every once in a while, I mean, you can certainly see it. People are allowed to push the envelope a little bit, and we don't address things right away. And then pretty soon they've grown into something that's a lot more difficult to
Sure.
rein in. So it's tough. It's a tough topic.
And we should mention there's so many different industries out there. There's so many different types of jobs. But it doesn't really matter whether it's a workplace, it's whether it's an office environment with, when we think at work, or workplace ethics, we think of people that might be working in a confined area and how they work together as a team in and out of their cubicles in a building. But it could be a team of, construction workers or flaggers or, um, you know, folks that are not necessarily all under the roof at the same time or even under any roof. It could be a landscaping company. Who knows?
Yeah. There's so many different workplaces. And at the end of the day, all we're talking about here, and I think all that anybody wants is people want to be respected. They want to feel like they belong and they want to feel valued. When you start penetrating any one of those three things, you're going to get people that are going to push back against that. And I think that there's been injustices all along the route. And obviously, especially with our nation's history, there's some long entrenched issues that have happened in the
Oh yeah.
Black community that are embarrassing. I mean, it's embarrassing to look at some of this historical stuff, but man, it's history. I was watching Morgan Freeman on a show, and somebody asked him, how do you end racism? He goes, well, that's pretty easy. I'm going to stop calling you a white man, and I'm going to ask you to stop calling me a Black man, because we're
Yeah,
just men. And so
sure.
little things like that make a big difference. But all of this other stuff that's happening alongside of it, it's like you said earlier, it's the perfect storm. You confine people in a space, say that you can't go and do the normal things that you do, uh, shortcut the amount of time that they're working, possibly affect how much money they're making, and just change their whole world up. And then you throw in this ridiculous, horrible, and massively painful situation with Mr. Floyd, and welcome to a powder keg.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we're in the middle of. So my call to leaders right now is be in front of the topic and talk to your team. And I used to meet with my team once a week. I meet with my team once a week now, but every single day it's good morning, team. It's Monday. Let's have a focus. Good morning,
Yeah.
team. It's Tuesday. Let's have a focus, because otherwise it's too easy to be drawn off target.
I'm thinking of nursing homes and I'm thinking of medical facilities, and the staff there at hospitals and how ridiculously busy they are. There's no time for really much of anything, let alone grab a cup of coffee. You get to work, you punch in, and you're walking into a storm head first, and it's go time.
Yeah.
But there is still chatter amongst employees, no matter how busy they are. People still engage with each other. Conversations are still spoken. And managers, if you're listening, don't just take the easy way out and send out a blast email to everyone saying, just a reminder to, welcome back to work. Let's treat everyone with respect. That's an easy way to do it. But if you have to go that route, follow it up with some kind of, make it a mandatory 30-minute sit down. Doesn't have to happen today, but maybe this week or next week. What do you say, or what would you say, Cheri, if you're the manager of a team of employees and you said, all right, guys, we're all going to sit down now and have a conversation about what's going on with race and racism in our country and George Floyd and the whole situation, the whole story. And how would you react to the folks that roll the eyes and kind of have the attitude of, oh, I'm so sick and tired of hearing about George Floyd. Here we go again. Why do we have to do this? This is so corporate. How would you respond to that?
Well, the first thing I would do as a leader is I would say, I would address it before I get the eyes rolled. I would say, guys, this topic has been going on for a while, and some of us might be tired of talking about it.
Or
And I
hearing about it, hearing
or
about it.
learn about it. And I don't want to belabor the point. I'm just pretending I'm talking to my team right now. But what I do want to say is, have I done anything as a leader in this organization to cause any of you to feel like you don't belong? And
Wow.
I'd be super vulnerable, and I would literally use the power of vulnerability and that sincerity. I would want them to see my heart, and I would want to say, is there anything that I've done personally? And I'd start with me, because when we start saying, well, you did this and you did that, then we start dividing the room again.
Sure.
So I'm, as the leader, I'm going to say, is there anything that I've done, whether it's company culture or actions or anything at all? And I want you to feel free to bring it up. Right now, we're in an open forum. It's almost like we kind of took our gloves off. Let's sit down and hash it out and
Sure.
be real. And let's make sure that when we walk out of this room today, that if there's something that needs to be said, we're at least saying, hey guys, here it is. But let's always communicate with respect. And let's always communicate knowing that even though I see it a certain way, that is my perspective. And
Sure.
I'm open to hearing what our team's perspective is. So I'd start with me as the leader, and I would just put that vulnerability right out on the line and lead by example.
And listen, if you have a team that's working remotely, they're working from home. If you're managing your team via Zoom or
Yes.
any other way to teleconference, you really almost don't have any excuse to not be able to get your team together. I mean, you just don't just do it. Dedicate that Zoom conference, that Zoom meeting, just for this topic alone. And
Mhm.
if it has to be 15 minutes, then that's fine. But it most likely will turn into a conversation, I would guess.
Yeah, when you start opening up the doors to really great conversations, you can certainly shut it down if you don't have enough time, but say, hey, let's revisit it again. At
Sure.
the end of the day, leadership is crafted in a crisis. Your team is looking to you right now because everybody wants to know, what should I do? What should
Yes.
I say? How should I respond? And the bottom
What's the
line
right
is,
way? The right
yeah,
way.
and I don't know if there is a right way. I
No.
think there's a human way, and unfortunately that's flawed. And so you got
Yeah.
to know that people, at least I choose to think that people are coming from their heart. I choose to think that the people that are out there peacefully rioting are rioting because they do feel like there's an injustice that's happened and they can make a difference. I choose to think that most police officers are amazing and wonderful people, and that we've got some bad apples that we have to root out. I
Sure.
choose to believe that my team is not going to foster a culture where these kinds of things would happen. But I also have to be responsible as a leader to make sure that when I do see something, that I take immediate action and I don't permit the kinds of things. Even little tiny comments can wound.
Of
And
course.
another thing, JD, and we haven't really talked much about this, and it may be another whole topic down the road, but man, we have got to get a little more thick-skinned when it comes to what people say, and not be so sensitive that we can't hear something
Wow.
and
Yes.
just let it sit for a second instead of having an immediate knee-jerk reaction. And I think if we do that, we have a lot better chance of hopefully exiting this crisis a lot better than we're doing right now in the middle of it.
So well said. Cheri Perry is our guest this morning, a workplace culture expert, a business coach, who operates Total Merchant Concepts, which is a national credit card processing company. You're
Mhm.
an author, you're a speaker. As I said, you're a business coach, and you are, first and foremost, one amazing lady.
Mm.
God bless you. And I thank you so much again for your book. How can folks pick up a copy of Grace?
They can certainly visit my website, JD, at cheriperry.com, which is CHERI, P as in Peter, ERRY.com. And I was going to say, first we started our conversation today talking about our babies, right? Your daughter, my
Yes.
son. And I always tell people my best thing, I love all the stuff that I've done, but my very, very best thing is being Tyler Perry's mommy. Not that Tyler Perry,
Yeah.
another one, mine.
Yeah.
So super cool.
Yeah. It's the most rewarding job I've ever had. When
Yeah.
when we announced that at work that we were going to have a baby, I had somebody say to me, "Of all the things you already are, you're about to become the most important thing you will ever be."
That makes me want to cry. It's so true.
And it's just, yeah, it's so true, so true. Thank you so much, Cheri, for coming on
You're
this
welcome.
morning. I'll tell you right now, I can't wait to have you on again, and I hope you will rejoin us here on Aired Out. There's so many things that we could talk about, and please consider this an open invite to rejoin me anytime if you got anything that you think is worthy of speaking about on the podcast. I would love to have you. I'd be honored.
Thanks, JD. Very fun. Have a great day.
All right, stay well. Cheri Perry this morning, ladies and gentlemen.